Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Aqiela Fadia Haya and I'm from English Literature B UNES. In this good occasion, I will deliver my presentation with the topic, Should books have movie adaptations? In my presentation, I divide it into 4 parts. The first one, introduction, what is book? Then the introduction of movie, what is movie? There is analysis. In this part, I analyze 2 questions based on the topic. Why are books being adapted into a movie? And why are most of the movie adaptations of novels not as good as the book? Conclusion is the last part of my presentation. In this section, I will conclude whether books should be adapted into a movie or not. Before we start to the first question, let's read the quotation about books and movies first. Stephen King, an American author, once said, "Books and movies are like apples and oranges. They both are fruit but taste completely different." Now I will begin my presentation. The first question, what is book? I'm sure all of us know what book is and must have read a book in our life. Since book is one of the most important part in learning process. So what is book? Book is a written or printed work consisting of pages which are glued or sewn on one side and tied around a cover containing information, stories, poetry, and etc. This is a book. A thick paper on the front and in the back. It's called cover. When we open it, there are a lot of paper inside, right? It's called pages. The written on the page containing information, stories, poetry, and so on depends on what kind of book it is. It relates to the next slide. Types of books. There are 2 types of books, non-fiction and fiction. Non-fiction books is literature contains factual stories or information focused on actual events and people. So, non-fiction book is a book represent truth, accuracy regarding to the information, events, and people. In contrary, fiction is literature contains a story the writer made based on imagination. So if you find a book contains factual events told about a people based on actual things, you will say, "Oh, this is non-fiction book." However, if you read a book told a story based on the writer's imagination that did not really happen in real life, you can say, "Oh, this is fiction book." Mostly, the kind of books which adapted into movie is fiction books. So I will explain more about fiction books. Genre in fiction books. There are a lot of genre in fiction books. There are romance, science fiction, fantasy, action, adventure, mystery, thriller, crime, and much more. However, I will tell you 3 most popular genre in fiction books. First, romance. Romance, stories about a romantic relationship between 2 people. I'm sure all of us familiar with this one, since there are a lot of books use this genre in delivering the story. For instance, the Dylan series, which has been adored by every teenager in recent years due to the romantic line. Next, science fiction. What is science fiction? Science fiction is a story set in the future, the past, or other dimensions, future scientific ideas and advanced technological concepts. The key word of science fiction is future. The story took place in the future and developed scientific ideas. I think this genre is not that popular in Indonesia, but in Western literature, science fiction is quite popular. Do you know Hunger Games? Yes, of course. Hunger Games is science fiction book. The last one, fantasy. Fantasy book, stories about myths, otherworldly magic-based concepts, and frequently take cues from historical settings. Unlike science fiction, which took place in the future surrounded with scientific ideas, however, fantasy book is a stories predominantly taught about medieval natural settings. If I ask you to give me one example of fantasy book, what would you answer? I know all of us will answer Harry Potter. Yes, Harry Potter is fantasy book because Harry Potter taught about a magic world. After we know the definition of book, types and genre of books, now let's continue to the next question. What is movie? Have you ever watched a movie? Yes, everyone must have watched a movie. Moreover, in this globalization era where everything can be accessed easily due to the technology. Once people watch a movie on the cinema or TV, now we can watch movie in any platform and device. We can watch a movie in our laptop, computer, even our smartphone. So what is movie? Movies or films are a type of visual communication which uses moving pictures and sound to tell stories or teach people something. The moving pictures is generally accompanied by sound and giving the ideas, stories, feels, or atmosphere through the movies or films. I think this is what makes movies and video different. Video is a type of moving pictures which may not be accompanied by sound. However, movies or films is a moving pictures that must be accompanied by sound so that the ideas or stories of the movie can be conveyed to the audience well. Just like books, movie also has the genre, and there are a lot of genre in movie. I will tell you three most popular genre in movie. First, action. What is action movie? Action movie is a movie typically include violence, extended fighting, physical feats, and frightened chases. Would you give me examples of action movies? Yes, of course. Fast and Furious, Mission Impossible is action movie. I think in the Hollywood movie there are a lot of action movie use this genre. Next, comedy. Comedy is a movie designed to make the audience laugh through amusement and to most often work by exaggerating characteristics for humorous effect. Have you ever watched a movie made you laugh throughout the movie from the beginning to the end? If yes, it means you watch a comedy movie. My Stupid Boss is one of the comedy movies that made me laugh a lot from the beginning to the end. How about yours? And the last, horror movie. Horror movie is a movie intended to scare, shock, and thrill its audience. Horror movie often shows the ghosts. In Indonesia, the ghost is just like pocong, jalangkung, and so on. In Indonesia, horror movie is really popular, and every year horror movie produced here. Let's say Danur, Jalangkung, and Pengabdi Setan, which really famous not only in Indonesia but also in other countries. Books and movies are two different things in how we enjoy it. However, both have similarities in terms of genres. We already know about book and movies. And I had a question in my head. Why are books being adapted into movie? Are you wondering too? If yes, let's check the reason. There are 4 reasons why books being adapted into movie, and each reason is related each other. The first one, the book is superb. Second, the book is famous. Then the enthusiasm of the readers to watch the stories they read. And last, give a big income to the film company. The book is superb. Yeah, book that has a beautiful storyline, unique plot, strong characters will give a big impact and influence their reader. If the book is great, more people will be read this book. That's why the book becomes famous. Once the book becomes famous, the reader wants to see their imagination about the story into live action. For this reason, the movie director will be interested in making the story come true that can be seen through the movie. And it will give a big profit to the film company because a lot of people are looking forward to. I like reading, especially novels. Most of novels that I read have adapted into movie. However, when I watch the movie, I feel like the story has changed. Why most of the movie adaptations of novels not as good as the book? Then I was searching it and here's what I got. Different interpretations. Huge filmmaking fund. The film duration is relatively short, expanding and narrowing the storyline. The first one, different interpretation. When you read a story, you must imagine the same situation with the story you read, right? Yes, every reader has their own imagination, including the movie director. Because the different interpretation between them, some of the reader will be disappointed when they watch the movie because it's different with what they imagined before. Next, huge filmmaking fund. The budget for filming is also determining in how the movie can be as good as the book or not. Since film requires a lot of actors, properties, and settings, the budget of the movie will be large, certainly will be large to make a great movie. The budget of movie will be large to make the budget of the movie will certainly be large to make a great movie. The budget of the movie will certainly be large to make a great movie. Then, The film duration is relatively short. The duration of movie is usually 2 hours, right? And book can contain 500 pages. Now, if 500 pages load into 2 hours movie, since film requires a lot of actors, properties, and settings, the budget of the movie will certainly be large to make a great movie. Then, the film duration is relatively short. The duration of movie is usually 2 hours, right? And book can contain 500 pages. Now, if 500 pages load into 2 hours movie, what will happen? Exactly, there will be so many scenes and characters in the book that have to be cut to adjust the duration of the movie. This will make the movie feel less because the movie didn't contain every part of the story in the book. The last one, expanding and narrowing the storyline. The scene of the book can be cut to adjust the duration of the movie. In contrast, the scene in the movie can be expanding or narrowing in such a way to add dramatic effect and enrich the emotions of the movie. These are 4 reasons why movie adaptation not as good as the book. We already know the reason why books being adapted into movie and why movie adaptation is not as good with the book. Now there's a question, should books have movie adaptations? What do you think? I personally think that whether a book should be adapted into a film or not depends on whether the producer is able to execute the film as well as the book. There are indeed a movie adaptation that didn't match with what I imagine when I read the story, and that somehow makes me upset. However, there are still a movie that make my imagination come true, where I can watch the characters in live action. For instance, Laskar Pelangi. Both book and movie are great. Riri Riza and Mira Lesmana execute the movie very well, according to what the reader expects. In conclusion, I think a book should be adapted into movie if the producer is able to execute the film and the fund making of the film is sufficient. Otherwise, it shouldn't be. To close my presentation, I have a beautiful Japanese quote to say. Things will never be as you imagine, so you better off stop seeing them. Imagination can compete with reality. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.